Hello everyone. If you don't know me already, my name's Harriet. I'm an illustrator, I live in London, and that's all you need to know about me. But yeah, today I'm going to show you how I do my paper cut technique because I've had a few questions on how I do this because believe it or not, I don't use any paper at all. I do it all on my iPad using Procreate. And hopefully it looks like I've used real paper because Lord knows I do not have the patience to cut up real paper. I'm a very messy person. I do not need any more mess in my life. So what we're going to do, we're going to split it up into 4 steps. So step 1, we're going to sketch out the rough shape of our character. You can copy my character if you want, you can do your own character. Then step 2, we're going to trace over our sketch with some nice clean lines to create some block colours, some kind of base colour to work with. And then step 3, we're going to add all the kind of shadow effects to make it look like layers of paper stacked on top of each other. And then last, we're going to add some patterns and things to kind of make it look like nice patterned textured paper. And that's literally it. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. This is probably the first video I've done in a really long time where you can actually see me and who I am, so I'm really nervous. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy it.
Right, so I've got a messy sketch here that I'm just tracing over on a new layer just to refine it and create some nice clean shapes. Now, key thing with this style, this paper cut style, is to work with really basic shapes, so almost like shapes that you could cut out with some paper. That's the key thing with this. You kind of got to use your imagination a little bit and imagine how easy would this be for me to cut out on paper. If it's too difficult, if it's too tricky, then it's probably not going to work as a shape for your drawing. So there we go, some shapes for our plants. After we've done our sketch, the next part is to plan out the colours. So I do this really messy. I use a really fat brush called the Nico Rule, which is a really good brush just to kind of slap some paint on. So I've chosen my colour palette already, but I'm just choosing where I put my colours on the canvas. So I've got some yellows and pink. This is a colour palette that I've been working around with a lot recently. So you can see, really not caring about going over the lines or anything. This is literally just to see where the colours go. So I pop that in the top left corner just so I can have a look at while I'm doing the nice neat shapes later on. For my proper shapes, I use the monoline in the calligraphy section. It's a really nice smooth brush. I'm just going to trace over my pencil sketches now. I try to do this all in one continuous line so I don't get any jagged edges, and just fill in like that. Next, I'm adding a new layer for the details of the skin, so the nose, the cheeks, all of that's going to sit on top of the base layer. There we go. So this part really is just colouring in, but again, keep the shapes really simple. If they're too complicated or too intricate for you to cut out easily with scissors, then it's probably not going to be the right shape. And as I'm going along, I'm naming my layers. This is something I never do. I'm really unorganised most of the time, but this is just so you can see what layer is doing what. I just drag it below like that. And I'm going to do a new layer for their hair. Now, I'm being really messy with this because I'm going to drag the hair layer below the skin, so you're not going to see any of this messy stuff. Ta-da! Magic. This is just what I love about digital art, things that you can do. Right, so this is where the first bit of drama happens. I realise my t-shirt sits on top of one of the arms, the left arm. So what we're going to have to do is go back to the skin layer, use the selection tool just to cut out the arm, just to isolate it from the rest of the arms and legs. There we go, cutting around, bob, 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 bob. Cut and paste. And it should be on its own new layer now. And then I drag the yellow t-shirt just below the left arm. There we go. So key thing with this technique is whenever you have a shape that overlaps another shape, is to do them on separate layers. Otherwise, they're not going to cast a shadow on each other when we do all the sort of the lighting effects. They need to be on separate layers if they overlap each other. Once we've got all of our shapes, we're ready to make them look 3D. So we're going to start off with the bottom layer, the hair, swipe to the left and duplicate it. Then the bottom layer, we're going to alpha lock it and then tap on it again and fill layer, and you want to fill it with a black. Now, if we didn't tap alpha lock and we just tapped fill, then this is what happened. It would just flood the layer like that. Once your shape is filled with black, you can turn off alpha lock because now we need to blur it. So we're going to go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and we're going to just slightly add a blur about 4%, 5%, and this will create a nice soft shadow. So after that, you're going to tap on the arrow, the transform tool, and drag your shadow slightly to the diagonal right, as you can see there. And this will create an illusion that the paper's casting a shadow on its background, and you can't really see it here, but I'll do it a few times so you can see the effect. So doing the same with the skin, duplicate, alpha lock, fill layer, turn off alpha lock, adjustments, Gaussian blur, and about 3–4%, arrow, and drag it down bottom right, just so you get this nice angled shadow. And some of the shadows are really dark, so we can turn down the intensity by tapping on the letter N next to each shadow layer and just turning the opacity to around 60%, and that just makes it nice and subtle and not too dark. And after I've created all of the shadows and turned down the intensity of them, I'm going to use a soft airbrush just to add some randomness to the shadows. So I'll normally rub out in the corners and leave most of the shadow near the sort of the very pointed edges, just so it looks like the paper's turning up a bit. So I'm doing the same thing with the stars, just rubbing out in the corners and leaving the very pointed edges with the most shadow, just so it looks like the paper is bending upwards. So I'm going to use that soft airbrush everywhere just to subtly edit the shadows to make it a little bit more random. And we're going to add a paper effect by using a lightish grey on a new layer. And then I've got these brushes by Seamlessteam. You can find them on Creative Market. They've got some really cool paper brushes, and I'm just going to give it a wash over with this light grey. And then on the layer blending modes, I'm going to turn it to linear light. I have no idea what this is doing. I do not know the technical ins and outs of Procreate and Photoshop, but it looks good, basically. I'm going to add another new layer and fill it with a slightly lighter grey, and then turn the layer blending mode to overlay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go to adjustments and go to noise, and then just turn that up very slightly, not too much. You don't want it to look like an old TV, but it gives it a really nice sort of scanned in sort of paper texture. And now it's time to add some patterns. So I'm going to do some patterns for these shorts. So I'm going to alpha lock the shorts layer. I'm going to go to my colours and choose a slightly darker shade than I used to colour them in. And then I've got these really cool patterns. This brush set is by someone called MiksKs. And these brushes are someone called Milka, both from Creative Market. So I'll do the same for the skin, going to alpha lock it, and then this pattern here, I kind of like it because it reminds me of stubbly legs, and I feel like that's very accurate right now for this lockdown situation. There we go, we'll do the same for the plants, some stripes and spots just to give it a bit of variety, and we're pretty much almost done now. And that's pretty much it. That's how I design my characters, just a lot of layers, essentially, just a lot of layers. That's all there is to it. Okay, so that was the paper cut technique. Hopefully you found it useful and fairly easy to follow along with. But let me know what you think. Like, comment, the usual stuff. I don't really know how to do this, but you get the idea. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Yeah, let me know if you found it useful and if you want to see any more of these videos in the future. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!